So a lot of golfers watching the channel, a lot of golfers come see us for lessons, have kind of some intentional, some unintentional built-in excuses, right? This is where a little tough love comes in at, of not improving or working on good things for their swing. So we're gonna go over a few hot button issues here, and we're gonna want you to prove us wrong. We're gonna talk about how pro movements, because we hear this all the time, especially with these issues that we're gonna cover, that I'm not young, I'm not fit, I'm not flexible, I can't make pro movements. We're gonna explain why pro movements are easier, especially as it relates to these common things that everyone works on in their golf swing. So the very first one are shoulder movements.
I can't make a big shoulder turn or a big enough shoulder turn.
That's part of it. Also, it's the tilt of the shoulders. I can't get my shoulders at the ball. The most common thing we see are golfers trying to make a steep shoulder turn.
Golfers coming in literally thinking that they should point their left shoulder at the ball. And it's so far from what should happen that it gets them turning their body in a way that really contorts them. And yet it feels very restrictive to do that, and actually can start causing some pain just because that's a motion that you really don't need to be putting in your swing. You shouldn't be putting in your swing.
It's physically very difficult to do.
It is.
So they are, we've all used the analogy over the years of, like, if I don't have any tilt forward, this is all my body's doing. Now, when I tilt forward, or let me go back one, if I'm doing this, golfers are trying to go like that. So they're throwing in the side bend and then trying to turn. All I have to do is tilt forward and continue to rotate around my shoulders. Now, it's so hard to convince most golfers to do less because no one comes in for a lesson thinking they're doing too much.
Well, it's this idea that, okay, I'm bent forward and I turned, so this is lower than this, therefore I should try to lower this. You don't need to do that. If you just turn around, like we talked about this in another video, if you had a tennis ball inside your sternum, you just rotated around it and it just spun around like a globe, your shoulders would turn on the correct pitch, which, oh, by the way, is not at the golf ball.
The tallest pro that we have in our database, the winner, gets his shoulders tilted 4.5 feet beyond the golf ball. The more normal sized golfers, 8, some of them 9 feet beyond the golf ball. That pro move is infinitely easier than it is to point your shoulders at the ball.
Well, to that point, if I wanted to turn the most, I would just turn super flat.
Right.
I'd go around like a top. So
right.
It's infinitely easier to make a correct shoulder turn than it is to drive your shoulder down at the ball.
Okay, so I don't want to hear in the comments anymore, unless you can prove us wrong, that a good shoulder plane
is at the ball
is more difficult to do for AMs than it is for pros. Pros are doing the easiest version of that. Next are hip movements. This is one that we see go off the rails all the time. I can't turn my hips enough. I've got to twist my knees and let my knees go and really flare my feet out to really get my hips turning.
Yeah, it's just like a rampant overturning epidemic out there, right?
Somewhere along the lines, someone has come up with the idea of more backswing turn equals more speed.
It does
to the point where, okay, if I got a headache that one aspirin will fit, I'll just pop the whole bottle and never have a headache again.
And we've proved it a million times. We use force plates, and the overturning actually can limit the force production as you come out of the top.
100%.
Because you've put yourself in a position where you can't ramp up the pelvis speed in a way to accelerate the whole motion. Your
sequencing is so much more important for speed than how much you can turn. Because if you can take I love this analogy Shaun came up with. If I have a pointer sticking out of my belt buckle and I can get my pointer pointing, from my point of view, my pointer is right over my big toe, that's 45 degrees. That feels like nothing. And you notice my legs don't have to make any big movements to do that.
No, and it's a lot less than people think. And it's funny, when I saw you doing that, it's the same thing as a shoulder turn. You don't want to overbend the lead knee to excessively tilt them. You just kind of point that belt buckle. All the body parts had their own plane of motion, right? So
that's right.
If this is my pelvis like this, it's an oval from above, and I just tip it forward, it has its own plane of motion. I don't want to wobble off of that axis.
Okay, so pro shoulder movements are easier. Now, you may not turn like Rory. We can't turn like Rory. Most tour players can't turn like Rory. We're not telling you have to have a pro
Differential.
130-degree shoulder turn to be a good golfer. Same with the pelvis movement. We have, if you just look at the tour winners, we have open at impact with the pelvis. We have 2 players that are in their teens, winners on tour in their teens, and I think 2 players that are in their 50s. Everybody else falls in between. So there's a massive range of rotation to be successful. So again, you don't have to get 80 closed, 80 open to have a pro move.
You'll never be able to.
You won't do it.
And this is a great point. Those of you that are trying to get more open, because there's some benefit, obviously,
100%.
in the pelvis getting open and some of these body positions. If you turned 80 on the way back, well, now you've only got a quarter of a second, and you only have about 90 degrees total to use.
At the high end.
Highest. So if you ideally 45 is a very normal range of hip turn that people can do, and it's a balanced hip turn, which helps improve all the other movements in the body.
By the way, that's trending down. 40-40 is starting to be kind of the new 45-45, because again, we're trying to go faster, not slower, to get more turn. So more rotation will be helpful. Most of you watching this video can physically get in that kind of median range of what we see tour pros, but you can't go maximum here, steep here to do it. Okay, so prove us wrong. Next on the list, pro shallowing. This is literally
very misunderstood.
Do less personified.
Yeah, so basically, if you learn how to turn the body and move the trail, let's just say the trail arm, move it correctly, which is let it elevate off the body here and then lower it down to the rib cage. If you take this club into the top correctly, as this club the club head works back towards you a little bit, and you reconnect the arm, you get the shallowing automatically.
Yes.
To the point where, a lot of you are going to have to be careful when you do that it doesn't get too far under. So you don't ever need to have we call it a manual shallowing move, where you spin the shaft. We see it all the time, right? We see, I got to get shallow. So they'll start spinning the shaft before the end of the backswing, which gives them that laid off, and it makes it harder to shallow. That's when they get into all these contorted positions.
We're well aware of all the measurements that happen with the forearms and wrist in these phases. We've been measuring them for years. What golfers don't understand is that if you move the club correctly, the club is going to move the arms once you start adding speed to it. So Shaun described it beautifully. It's getting to the top in a good spot. Okay, so if I just come back up in a standing posture, that's shallowing. Now this is infinitely easier than trying to go up, bow my wrist, drive my elbows together, get my elbow in front of my navel, and do this. Now, to get to the ground, now I've got to add this motion. That's what some of you, because we see you in lessons, trying to do to shallow the club when it's literally just this.
And we know it's not your fault. I mean, it's being preached out there.
No, this is challenging the reason not to do the correct things.
Yeah, and you do not need to make these contorted movements to play good golf.
The blame for all these concepts fall on our side of the equation, the instruction side. None of you are responsible for this, but we do want you not to buy into it's so hurtful mentality that pro movements, I have to be built like Rory, young as Rory, or whoever your favorite pro is, to move in these key areas of the golf swing. Everything we're talking about, if you do these things well, you are going to have a good golf swing, and they are easier to do.
Try to put these pieces in. We talked about a lot of good ones today. Arm motion for shallowing, yes. The pivot motion, the plane of the shoulders. Just keep layering these good pieces into your swing, and eventually you get to be where you have a neutral swing, which we really like because it's easier to do, and oh, by the way, you can play longer without getting hurt.
Okay, pro shallowings, lowering, and unfolding. That's it. On this trail side of the body. Again, that's way easier. So again, you got to prove us wrong if you want to come up with that excuse. Next, pro impact.
Okay, yeah.
What's a typical, when we ask a golfer to pose impact, what do we typically see demonstrated?
This one is just mind-blowing. So if I have someone come in here and pose impact, normally what we get is something that looks as ridiculous as this. So the first thing that we will say to that person is, how are you going to hit the ball, right? Because they're not touching the ground. They say, well, I'm exaggerating that because I'm have my hands way out in front, which is going to allow me in my normal swing to have tons of shaft lean. And oh, by the way, whenever I see their normal swing and they try to do that, they end up with way less shaft lean than they think they're going to get.
Yeah, this dovetails with the pro shallowing movement. So again, Shallowing happens, you lower it on the trail side, impact happens over here.
Yeah, so you
That's so much easier than trying to go from the top to all the way across and shaft lean, tilt, all that stuff.
the problem with that, making the hands cross the midline, before what they're supposed to, which is up in the follow through, is that to do that you have to drag the hands more across and down, right? Because if you're going to drag your elbow and hands out in front, that's a steepening hand pack move. So you could do it, but you've sacrificed the plane of the hands and the club, which needs to be more this way. Now, if I lower down to here with a little bit of side bend, because I know I'm going to have a little bit of that
Well,
impact.
because the side bend, a lot of it comes from your shoulders still being closed to your hips.
Exactly. So now I just pivot my hips around. A lot of you would be really happy with that.
Lo and behold, tour average for shaft lean, no contorted body movements, and your hands have just lowered down to your trail side.
Yeah, like a macro, for example, like 7 degrees of shaft lean. It's just not as much as everyone's thinking, for one thing. So it is kind of less than everybody thinks.
Yes. So far, way easier than what we see normal everyday golfers trying to do. If we go out into the bays right now, filmed every bay, we would see the opposite of these pro moves because we've all been taught them. We certainly have, but there's just not that difficult to do. The last one is maintaining posture. This is very difficult to do improperly. The pros aren't trying to maintain their posture.
Yeah, and this one, really stands out through the hip. And it's where you see, we call it Mr. Havenkamp or bird dogging, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's when I had someone come in here the other day that was trying to maintain their posture, and they make a swing something like this, right? Because they have the feel they need to stay down, which is the same thing pretty much.
Sure, we've all been told
to stay
you
down.
Came up, you lifted your head, you stood up, or whatever is the case, but that's what is happening in real swings, with the caveat of hands being on the trail side, so you have some side tilt, and it looks like what we see every great player do.
Exactly, so that's why the 3D is so important to understand. If I swing through to halfway in the finish, if I turn at the camera in a way that you can see how I've stretched my stomach out here, my belt buckle is forward from my rib cage. So definitely have turned on this angle, but extended my body in a way that I can get this great looking like every player that's ever lived that's been any good.
Right.
If you try to maintain posture, a lot of times you'll have this look where the hips back up and the rib cage is out in front too much.
These key topics, if you move your shoulders well, if you move your pelvis well, if you shallow the club well, if you have a good impact or know what a good impact is, and you're able to move the body correctly, which is losing posture, you will have all of those are pro movements.
You made a good point. If Mike puts his hand just on my head and keeps it there, I'm losing posture, but still from the down the line camera because it's a three-dimensional movement.
With rotation.
So you have to understand that. Go find somebody that has a 3D motion capture system that's really good if you want to learn some of this stuff and really drive it home. Come see us down here. Get on gears. We'd love to have you at a golf school or a one-day school.
Again, we didn't make this video to make fun of anyone. It's more of an indictment on the teaching industry than anything. We made this video for any of you who've had the excuse, I can't do a pro move, either by thinking it's physically too difficult or just by trying to implement the wrong concepts. We've got multiple videos on all of these topics. Go to the search bar on our channel, search for any of these topics. You will get multiple videos to help you kind of dial in how to make these movements. But we just wanted to put something in one video to alleviate the excuse of I'm not in physical enough shape as a tour player. He's got a fitness team and therapists and all that. You don't have to be for these key elements of the golf swing. You just have to know what should be happening, then allow yourself, in many cases, to do less to make them happen.